She isn't over you, and the truth is, she's putting on a performance stronger than any pain she's actually processing. Women rarely let the world see how deeply something affects them, especially when it comes to the man they once gave their heart to. She won't show the cracks, she won't show the hesitation, and she definitely won't show the regret, not yet. Instead, she chooses the mask of calmness, the mask of control, the mask of, I'm doing just fine without him. But behind that mask is a storm she's trying desperately to hide from everyone, including herself. When she walked away, she didn't suddenly stop caring. She simply started pretending harder. She wanted to look unbothered, wanted to seem strong, wanted to act like losing you didn't shake her. But suppression is not healing, and everything she pushes down eventually comes back up stronger. That's why her silence doesn't mean what you think it means. When she ignores you, she's not showing peace, she's showing fear. She's terrified that acknowledging her feelings might expose her vulnerability. She's scared that if she reaches out, she'll lose even more control. So she convinces herself she needs distance, not because she's over you, but because she knows she isn't. Her distance is her defense mechanism, her coldness is her armor, and her detachment is nothing more than a temporary strategy to protect her ego from admitting the truth she still thinks about you, still wonders about you, and still feels the emotional pull that she's trying to escape, even when she posts pictures looking happy or writes captions about growth and moving on. Those aren't signs of freedom, those are signs of effort. She is working overtime to convince herself and everyone watching that she's unshaken. But the harder someone tries to look unaffected, the more affected they truly are. She uploads a smiling picture not because she's joyful, but because she's trying to stun on her own pain. She shares motivational quotes not because she's inspired, but because she's reminding herself not to collapse. She surrounds herself with noise because the silence exposes the truth she's running from. And every time she pretends she's okay, a part of her knows she's lying. She still replays moments in her head. She still catches herself thinking about what you used to do. She still compares every new experience with the ones she had with you. Her heart hasn't erased you, it's just trying to outrun the memories. But the mind never loses the things that once mattered deeply. She walks around acting fine, but triggers hit her when she least expects them. A song you both listened to, a place you both visited, a joke you both laughed at. One moment she's confident she's moved on, and the next moment your memory hits her like a wave she didn't see coming. She acts stronger because she doesn't want you to see the weakness. She hides her feelings because she doesn't want you to feel powerful. She stays silent because she fears that the moment she reaches out, she'll regret giving you access again. But that's the whole point. She still feels something worth hiding. If she were truly over you, she wouldn't need to act, pretend, or force anything. Indifference doesn't require performance. Genuine healing doesn't require proof. And deep down, she knows she hasn't healed, she hasn't moved on, she hasn't detached. She's simply pretending until the mask gets too heavy to hold because pretending is easier than admitting she still cares. Pretending is easier than facing the emotional truth. Pretending is easier than revealing that losing you hurts more than she expected, but reality catches everyone eventually. And no matter how strong she tries to appear, her emotions will always reveal what her pride tries to hide, only necessary ending line. Eventually, the truth she hides will become the truth she can no longer run from. She may be pretending she's moved on, but her emotions never truly detach from you because emotional bonds don't dissolve just because someone walks away. When she chose distance, when she chose silence, when she convinced herself that stepping out of your life was the right move, she underestimated the emotional roots she had already planted. A woman doesn't forget the man she once felt safe with. She doesn't forget the moments that shaped her, the comfort, the connection, the depth you two shared. She may try to bury it, but the heart stores everything, especially the things it isn't ready to release. That's why she still reacts, still feels triggered, still becomes defensive at even the mention of you. You don't react to things you're over. You react to things that still matter. This is exactly why she watches you silently. She may not text, she may not call, she may not reach out, but she is observing. She checks your social media not because she's curious, but because she's invested. She wants to know if you're happy without her, if you're thriving without her, if you're becoming the man she secretly fears she'll want back one day. Every time she sees you leveling up, there's a sting she tries to hide. Every time she sees you silent and disciplined, she feels a confusion she can't escape. And every time she sees you unaffected, stable, and focused on yourself, a part of her questions the decision she made. Because if she were truly over you, she wouldn't need updates. She wouldn't need reassurance. She wouldn't need to check. People only monitor what still has emotional weight. She also compares every man she meets to you, and she hates that she does it. She pays attention to the way they talk, the way they carry themselves, the way they respond under pressure. She notices their lack of depth, their lack of emotional intelligence, their lack of consistency. And slowly, she begins to realize that what she walked away from wasn't something she can easily replace. That's when the regret begins to grow quietly. Regret doesn't show up dramatically, it shows up silently, consistently, and slowly. It creeps in when she's alone, when there's no noise to distract her, when her mask slips and her real emotions appear. Suddenly, she starts to understand the difference between attention and connection, between excitement and stability, between momentary validation and genuine love. And that realization hits harder than anything you could ever say to her. What confuses her the most is your silence. She expected you to chase, to fight, to beg, to convince her she was wrong. But when you didn't do it, when you didn't break, when you didn't collapse under the pressure of losing her, it shook her ego. It made her question everything. Because the truth is, she wanted to believe she had more control over you than she actually did. Your silence becomes the mirror that reflects back her own emotional instability. And the more you remain calm, collected, and disciplined, the more she feels the cracks forming in her certainty. She can't forget you because you represent something real, something meaningful, something she didn't appreciate fully while she had it. You represent consistency in a world full of temporary people. You represent emotional depth in a world full of shallow connections. You represent the kind of energy that stays with someone long after the relationship ends. And that's why she will always feel that lingering attachment no matter how hard she tries to deny it. Only necessary ending line: she's not over you. She's only fighting a battle she's already losing within herself, even when she tries to convince herself and the world that she's fully detached. The truth is that her emotions don't disappear, they just get suppressed, redirected, or delayed. What most men don't realize is that women often feel the real weight of loss later, not immediately. At first, she may look confident, happy, relieved even. She may post pictures, laugh loudly with friends, show off her new freedom, and behave as if walking away from you was the easiest decision she ever made. But that's just the surface. That's the emotional armor women use to protect themselves from the fear that they may have made a mistake. Underneath that mask, her mind is replaying every moment, every conversation, every memory, trying to evaluate whether she made the right decision or if she acted too quickly, too emotionally, too impulsively. What she doesn't expect is that silence from you amplifies everything. When you don't chase her, you force her to sit alone with her own thoughts, thoughts she believed she had buried. You remove the distraction she expected, your texts, your calls, your attempts to fix things. And without those, she has no choice but to confront the reality of what she did. She begins to question whether leaving you was empowerment or self sabotage. She wonders why you're not reaching out, why you're not breaking, why you're not crumbling. The very silence she thought would make her feel in control slowly starts to make her feel forgotten. And that fear of being forgotten is what starts the emotional unraveling. Because now she's not just thinking about you, she's comparing who you were before with who you are becoming now. She sees you growing, evolving, improving, not for her, but for yourself. She sees you becoming stronger, more disciplined, more focused. She sees that losing her didn't destroy you, it sharpened you, and that realization rattles her. She expected to see you broken, not becoming the best version of yourself. She expected you to come crawling back, not rising silently. So now she starts to think about the future. Not the future she thought she could reinvent without you, but the future she may have jeopardized by walking away from someone who actually cared, someone who was real, someone who didn't pretend. That's when regret begins to transform. It stops being a quiet whisper and becomes a constant background noise in her mind. It shows up when she's alone at night, when her phone doesn't light up the way it used to, when she's disappointed by men who don't treat her with the same warmth, presence, or patience you once gave effortlessly. She begins to realize that bonds like yours don't come around often, that the energy, the consistency, the stability you provided isn't something she can replace with excitement or novelty. She starts noticing the difference between a man who truly invested in her and men who only want short term thrill. Every disappointment, every moment of loneliness, every unmet expectation becomes a reminder of you and of what she lost. What hurts her deepest is the growing awareness that you're moving forward while she's stuck replaying the past. She sees a version of you she wished she appreciated earlier. She sees the strength she once took for granted. She sees the maturity she once overlooked. And that realization creates a kind of internal conflict she can't escape. Her heart wants to reach out, but her pride holds her back. Her mind tells her she may have lost something irreplaceable, but her ego doesn't want to admit the mistake. So she stays silent, battling a storm she created herself. Only necessary ending line. She thought she walked away clean, but now she's the one drowning quietly in the consequences of her own choices. When a woman walks away, especially when she believes she's fully justified in doing so, she often expects her emotional experience to follow a predictable pattern: initial relief, a sense of empowerment, a renewed feeling of self control. But what she doesn't expect is how time begins to work against her, slowly unraveling the confidence she had at the beginning. And the biggest turning point, one most men never recognize, is when she starts comparing reality with the fantasies she built in her mind. Because when she left, she wasn't just leaving you, she was leaving who she imagined she could become without you. She had a picture in her head, a new life, new possibilities, new happiness. But fantasies don't always survive real world pressures, and expectations don't always match results. At first, she might fill her days with distractions, friends, outings, social media posts that scream, I'm fine, even though she's trying to convince herself more than anyone else. But when the noise fades and the excitement quiets down, she starts realizing that something feels missing. There's an emptiness she didn't account for, a void she didn't expect. And this is where the comparison begins. She starts thinking about what life felt like with you. Not the arguments, not the imperfections, because those fade with time. She remembers the comfort, the familiarity, the emotional security. She remembers the version of herself she was when she was with you, more grounded, more cared for, more stable. She remembers that she didn't have to pretend with you the way she does now around others. That comparison becomes even more intense when she notices that you're no longer the man she left. You're calmer, stronger, more focused. You see more intentional. You see you improving without bitterness, evolving without desperation, growing without using pain as an excuse. And that shakes her because she begins to realize something she never expected. She didn't just lose who you were, she lost who you were becoming. She thought leaving you would make you chase, crumble, or collapse. Instead, it gave you space to transform. Instead of breaking you, it refined you. Instead of weakening you, it woke you up. And that contrast creates a sting she can't ignore. Over time, this emotional shift turns into something heavier. She starts noticing the flaws in the choices she made after leaving you. She sees the difference between her expectations and her reality. She sees how quickly excitement fades, how temporary attention feels, how shallow new connections can be when compared to the authenticity you offered. She begins to understand that she didn't replace you. She just distracted herself from the loss. And distraction isn't healing, it's delaying the pain. She realizes that while she tried to convince herself she upgraded her life, the truth is she only stepped away from stability and into uncertainty. What makes it even more intense is the way regret works. It doesn't hit all at once, it grows slowly like a shadow creeping across her thoughts. One day, she scrolls past an old photo. Another day, she hears a song that reminds her of you. Another day, she sees a moment of your personal growth online, and then it hits her. She's not over you, not even close. And the worst part, she starts wondering if you're already over her. She imagines you giving another woman the emotional depth, the patience, the warmth that she walked away from. She imagines you building a life she no longer has access to, and that thought eats at her quietly but relentlessly. She tries to hide it even from herself. She tries to maintain the image of someone who's confident, unbothered, moving on effortlessly. But images don't heal wounds, and pride doesn't erase truth. Deep down, she knows she's feeling the consequences of her decision while you've become everything she thought she could find somewhere else. And when she compares what she hoped for with what she actually got, the regret becomes undeniable. only necessary ending line. In the end, it's not your absence that hurts her most. It's the realization that leaving you cost her far more than she ever expected. When she walked away, she believed she was stepping into a world where everything would be lighter, easier, and more fulfilling. She convinced herself that leaving you was the solution, that distancing herself would bring clarity or happiness or some form of emotional freedom. But what she never expected was the way silence would reshape her thoughts, how distance would magnify everything she tried to ignore. And one of the deepest realizations she eventually faces, the one that hits her quietly, slowly, and unexpectedly, is that you weren't the source of her discomfort, her own unresolved emotions were. It wasn't you that made her feel uncertain or overwhelmed. It was her inability to understand what she truly wanted and what she was genuinely running from. As time passes and the initial relief of separation fades, she begins noticing patterns she overlooked before. She sees that the situation she blamed you for, her frustration, her confusion, her emotional instability follow her into new spaces, new connections, and even into moments when she's completely alone. That's when the truth becomes harder to escape. The problems didn't disappear when she left you because they were never rooted in you, they were rooted in her. You were simply the mirror reflecting back the parts of herself she didn't want to acknowledge. This realization becomes even stronger when she reflects on how you handled things after she left. Instead of chasing demanding explanations or drowning her in emotional pressure, you did the opposite. You worked on yourself, you stabilized your energy, you reclaimed your dignity, and focused on your growth. You didn't try to fix her or rescue her or pull her back into your world. You simply allowed space to reveal the truth. And that contrast exposes something she didn't expect. You were not the chaotic element, you were the grounding force. That's when regret begins to shift into something heavier, responsibility. Not responsibility to return to you, but responsibility to face herself. Because while she thought leaving you would relieve her emotional burden, she realizes that you were the one person who brought consistency into her life. You were the one who stayed calm when she panicked, patient when she acted impulsively, steady when she felt unsure. She expected distance to show her all your flaws, but instead it exposes her own. And that truth hits harder than any heartbreak. She starts remembering the moments when you offered understanding she didn't appreciate at the time. The times you listened, the times you adjusted, the times you tried to meet her where she was emotionally, efforts she either minimized or dismissed. Now, with silence around her, those moments glow brighter. They're no longer clouded by arguments or ego. They stand alone as proof that you were sincere, committed, and emotionally present in ways she didn't recognize until much later. The more she thinks about it, the clearer it becomes she underestimated you. She underestimated your strength, your patience, your ability to love without losing yourself. And perhaps the most painful realization is that she walked away from someone who was genuinely trying, genuinely growing, genuinely willing to understand her while she wasn't prepared to understand herself. That understanding shifts the entire emotional landscape because regret isn't just about missing a person, it's about recognizing the value of something you weren't ready to appreciate. She sees now that you weren't the one causing emotional instability, you were the one helping her navigate it. You weren't the one holding her back, you were the one offering support. And when that truth settles in, it becomes impossible for her to pretend she's indifferent. Only necessary ending line. In the end, what hurts her most is realizing you weren't the problem. Losing you forced her to finally face the real one. With enough time and enough silence, something powerful begins to shift inside her, something she never expected when she walked away. At first, she believed that distance would make her feel free, clean, and certain. She assumed that her life without you would be effortless, that her emotions would settle, that moving on would be simple. But as the weeks turn into months, she realizes that emotional detachment isn't a straight line, it's a cycle, and every cycle eventually returns her to the truth she tried to escape because time doesn't just heal, it reveals. And when a woman has lost a man who genuinely cared for her, time becomes the one force she cannot negotiate with, outrun, or silence. In the beginning, she thought your absence would reduce her connection to you, but instead, it deepens it because now, instead of reacting to the version of you she built in her frustration or confusion, she's forced to remember the real you. Slowly, your image stops being mixed with emotion and becomes clearer than ever. She remembers your patience, your loyalty, your ladder, the small details you didn't think mattered. She remembers your consistency, the way you made her feel safe without conditions. These memories return not because she wants them to, but because time brings everything back with sharper clarity. And with that clarity comes something unexpected: longing, not the longing for attention or validation, but the longing for stability, warmth, and connection. She begins to compare what she had with what she has now. Maybe she dates new people, maybe she entertains new conversations, maybe she tries to distract herself, but nothing feels the same. No one understands her the way you did. No one listens the way you used to. No one sees her with the same depth and softness you naturally offered. And the painful truth is that she notices this comparison everywhere she goes, even in the smallest moments. But it's not just longing that grows, it's vulnerability, that deep internal vulnerability she tried to bury when she left. She becomes afraid to reach out because she knows that too much time has passed and the silence has changed the dynamic. You aren't the same man who once made himself readily available. You aren't the man waiting for her to come back. Your silence didn't just protect your dignity, it transformed your energy. She feels it, she senses it, she realizes she might not have access to you anymore. That fear becomes the turning point because now she's not just thinking about the past, she's imagining the future. And what scares her most is the possibility that she's no longer a part of it. She sees your growth, your calmness, your purpose. She sees that you learn to stand on your own 2 feet without collapsing under emotional weight. She sees that losing her didn't break you, it built you. And that transformation makes her question whether she would even know how to reconnect with you now. Time teaches her the one lesson she never wanted: men like you don't stay available forever. Men who grow, evolve, and rebuild themselves eventually become out of reach for the people who took them for granted. She realizes she may have lost not just a relationship, but access to a man who could have been her anchor if she had recognized it earlier. The heaviness of that realization sits deeper than heartbreak. It's not just regret, it's the fear of irreversibility. She knows now that the longer she stays silent, the harder it becomes to bridge the gap. The longer she waits, the more she risks losing you forever, and the longer you remain silent, the more her emotions unravel into a mix of longing, regret, and insecurity, only necessary ending line. In the end, time didn't heal her. It exposed everything she never wanted to face, leaving her with the fear that you've already moved beyond where she can ever reach again.